A historic win for Michigan? Absolutely. An easy win? Certainly not. Maryland gave Michigan everything they could handle and then some. Yes, the Wolverines got out with win number 1,000, but they took a few scars doing it. Are there concerns within this maize and blue program heading to the game next week against Ohio State?
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
If you turned on this game in the second half and you saw the score at that point in time, you would think, yeah, Maryland's going tick for tack. It's an even game throughout this. They're going back and forth. But if you watch the whole game, you know that wasn't true. Throughout the whole season, national commentators and myself, we've been talking about the boa constrictor when we talk about Michigan. You know, they get out, they really latch on their grip and they continue. But once they get to the late first half and that early second half, they really suck the life out of you. No points against this Michigan defense in the third quarter all season up until this very football game. Because this was a Michigan team that had a 23-3 lead over the Maryland Terrapins, and certainly they had that grip. But you know what Maryland did late in the first half, early second half? They were the first team all year to loosen that grip. You got to give all the credit in the world to Mike Locksley, because maybe any other team in that situation will have the life and the breath sucked out of them, because that's how Michigan plays football. When they get a lead on you, they continue to pound the rock. They continue to hit plays over the top. Their defense continues to attack you, but not in this game. Not in this game. Michigan looked human throughout this football game. I think a big reason why Maryland had success in a lot of this football game is because they were self-aware. They knew what they were, and they knew what they needed to do to have a little bit of success against Michigan. They knew, and we actually saw it early in this game, they knew that their weakness was their offensive line. 6 sacks allowed versus Northwestern, 6 sacks allowed versus Penn State. Talia had been running around in a lot of these games here mid-season, and then once we've gotten to the late season. So, short passing game. Quick passing game. Neutralize that Michigan pass rush and give your offensive line a break. And get it out to your playmakers in space and let them create with the football. I think that was the key for Maryland, having the success that they did against the Michigan Wolverines in this one. I was screaming at the TV in the second half, tempo, 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 because when Maryland, was able to complete consecutive passes down the field, they were able to get momentum with the short passing game, quick passing game. That's when they had success. When they went fast, play after play after play, that's when they were able to move the football down the field. You gotta think Ohio State is gonna look at this game film. And they're going to look at the things that Maryland did, and they're going to look at the things that Maryland was successful at, and they might incorporate some of that in next week's game when they face the Michigan Wolverines. I talked about the Maryland offensive line. It reared its ugly head early in this game, right? A scoop and score on some quarterback pressure and a blocked punt. Michigan, who do you think you are? Iowa? Right, that's exactly. Got a couple of points, got 9 points, a touchdown and a safety. Not on offense. Getting some big defensive pressure, and whether it was the special teams offensive line, if you want to call it that, and then the offensive line, actually on offense, they attacked them early. And I think that's when Maryland made the adjustment. It says short, quick passing game. We need to get rid of the ball quickly, get some confidence and momentum down the field for Talia Tungavailoa and this offense. There was a big game swing in this matchup. Even though Maryland had multiple opportunities late in this game, a missed throw with about 8 minutes left in the third quarter for Talia. He followed it up a couple of plays later with an interception. It led to Michigan points. That was the swing in the game, because Maryland came out, they got points on the board right away in the second half, and they had all of the momentum on their side. But the interception by Michigan, taking then the ball down the field, getting points. That's where the game really flipped. Because if Maryland, even if they get a field goal on that drive, I think it's a very different game in the end in this one. All right, here's what I want to say about Michigan. These last 2 weeks, they've been really fixated on the run game. Everybody talked about last week when they did not run the football one time in the fourth quarter. They refused to throw the ball, and I totally got it last week. But there were some situations throughout this game, definitely in the second half, where they really stuck to the run game. And I think you saw some parts of this game, even like last year, you kind of saw it a little bit last year. Michigan has these points in time, and J.J. McCarthy has these points in time, where Michigan pounds the rock and pounds the rock and pounds the rock and pounds the rock. And then you look to throw the ball over the top. Sometimes you get scary, J.J. Sometimes you get the J.J. McCarthy that was late in the first half in this football game that basically threw 2 interceptions on one drive. Remember, late in that first half, he had one that was dropped, and then he had one that was actually caught and the turnover, and cost Michigan at the very least 3 points, possibly 6 points. When you run and you run and you run, it's great that you can move the football that way, but your passing game then can't get into a rhythm. Look, we know JJ's a good quarterback. We know Michigan has a good wide receiving core. Yes, I know they lost Roman Wilson. In this game, they lost some offensive linemen. Injuries were a big part, I think, to Michigan's game plan and Michigan's approach, not only entering this game, but throughout this football game as one. I think Maryland kind of took advantage of that. I just want to see more balance in Michigan. Michigan, I know you can run the football. Everybody knows that. But you need to be balanced. Like, you got one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country back there. I think you need to take advantage of him. Because you may think you can line up and run the football, and that's the way to win. And that's great. But when you get to a game like, for example, next week against Ohio State, and then you get to, and they're great defense, and then you get to some of these CFP type of games, I just don't think you're going to be able to live in that box where you can run and run and run. A couple of weeks back, when Jim Harbaugh was still coaching, I was saying, has this become a team that wants to throw the football more? And they looked really dominant that way. The balance, for me, is something that I think Michigan really needs to implement going forward and really needs to work on going forward heading to Ohio State. If you try to line up against some of those defensive linemen and that defensive front for the Buckeyes, and you try to run the ball, look what Maryland did. Maryland clued in on. They know, okay, we have to stop the run game. If we stop the run game, we're feeling pretty good, and Maryland was feeling pretty good for a lot of this game. Ohio State is a much better defense than Maryland is. Michigan, just please, we know you can run the ball. Everybody knows that. You don't have to prove that to anybody. Just be a little bit more balanced, and you're going to be a really good football team. Like I said, you've got one of the best players in college football possibly back there at quarterback, and J.J. McCarthy. Take advantage of it. You have receivers like a Colston Loveland. We'll see what the health is going to be like for Roman Wilson. There's guys on this roster in the receiving game that can get open and then that can make plays. Just balance it out. Take advantage of it. This had classic trap game written all over it, and it was a trap type of scenario for Michigan in this game. But for me, it's the play calling. The play calling needs to be more balanced out for the Michigan Wolverines, really, going forward. There were so many. I think one last thing that I really want to touch on, I think you can talk about offense, you can talk about play calling all you want, you can talk about Michigan's defense really ramping up the pressure and getting after Maryland's offensive line late in this game, but it was the Maryland field position late, right? That punt that absolutely died right there at the 1 yard line, and then Talia Tungavailoa and this offense, back-to-back drives, they're right at the 1 yard line over there. That was tough. Like when you take on a defense like Michigan and you're back to your 99 yards away from your goal line where you got to cross to get into the end zone to possibly take the lead or tie this game, it's just not going to work that way. They needed a little bit of breathing room, and they just didn't get it. They didn't get it. I did not agree with that late intentional grounding penalty call. I thought there was a receiver somewhat in the area. At that point in time, I don't know if you can call that penalty. That's just my opinion. Should there be concern for Michigan going forward into this game against Ohio State? If they continue to call their offense like they do and they say, you know what, we're just going to jam it down your throat. Teams like you saw what Maryland did. They sold out on the run. You know what Ohio State's going to do with those great defensive linemen up front, with guys like Eichenberg and Chambers at linebacker. They're going to flow to the football. They're going to flow in there, and they are going to stop the run game. Try to go over the top. See what happens. Short, quick passing. Michigan, they got to find a way to slow down 18. They got to find a way to slow down Marvin Harrison Jr. If I'm Ohio State watching this game film, I'm looking at this, hey, let's get Marvin Harrison Jr. in space. Let's keep the tempo up. Let's keep the tempo going. This game makes this maybe Michigan and Ohio State game a little bit closer than I anticipated. Coming into this week, I thought Michigan was a better team by about 10 points or so. And we'll see what happens with Ohio State against Minnesota. But this thing tightens it up a little bit more, and I cannot wait. I want to hear your thoughts. Michigan survives. Should there be concern in Ann Arbor, Michigan? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And what about Maryland? Still cannot get it done against one of these big three teams, but this is exactly how they needed to play. Leave your thoughts on the Terps below in the comments as well. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.